regarding how governor, this is about the April judgment. We have been discussing this issue from May. Basically, it's about whether the Supreme Court has the power to decide if they, to impose any rules, whether they can actually decide the timelines for the passing of bills by the governor. So this is the context. Okay, so basically what happened here is that Justice B.R. Gavai, he questioned whether the courts have the power to decide this or not. So is this a case? You were asking this doubt, right? So this is the question. If Supreme Court decides the timeline, is that a judicial overreach or is that judicial activism? Okay. So we will be having that discussion today. So basically, if you take a look at the two perspectives, yeah. So where were we? Yeah, we were talking about the two concepts. So consider this like a dialogue between the government and the judiciary. So on the judicial front, Supreme Court is saying that, the judge on behalf of Supreme Court is saying that should we stay silent if the spirit of the Constitution is violated? Because why does a legislature exist? To make a law and pass it. So justice delayed is justice denied. That is one perspective. If we allow this as a precedent and normalize courts making laws, isn't it breach of separation of powers? This is what the Solicitor General is saying. Both the arguments are right. Now, if you have to decide what is a bigger threat, see, it's like when you are supposed to take sides, when you are only left with two choices, either this or this, you have to pick one. In this case, on which side do you see more weight in the argument? Importance of activism, because the end result, the end purpose is much more important than the rules. The rules exist to serve. We are not here just for the sake of rules, just for complying with the rules. The purpose, the cause for which those institutions exist is above everything. And if you are using the loopholes, the spirit of the Constitution itself is at challenge. And therefore, in this case, it is judicial activism. Any action? Because there is no rule that he should take an action. Why is there no rule? Because Article 200 or 201 did not mention any such timeline. Who should make the law? Parliament. Are they making a law? No. Is the end result achieved? No. Then who should intervene? It is a circular argument. To break that cycle or the logical fallacy, you have to move towards Supreme Court, which is the perfect check. So in this case, it's a clear-cut argument that it is a case of judicial activism, not overreach. Clear? Is your doubt clarified? Look at the headline. Look at the headline. So if you think it is a case of judicial overreach, then what should they do? The end purpose is not getting solved. So if you don't like us making laws, then you go make yourself, do your duty properly. You can pass it. That is a logic. There are not many articles today, so I will not really see. I don't want to repeat the article again daily. Same old issue. So I am not touching this. There is nothing new here. Okay. Let's take this case. It's like a case study on custodial torture. Every few months you will see this. Okay. How do we take this issue of custodial torture? Is it just about police, or is it about an attitude that is at the heart of why violence occurs? Okay, let me establish the case to take this debate forward. What is the problem here? Why do police exist? For law and order, to maintain that stability. Right. So how do you create the stability? Through legislation, executive and judiciary. All of them should work together to maintain that stability in the society, and there should be some guardrails to protect each institution from outside world influencing them. At the same time, each institution should also show accountability. Both ways, transparency and accountability should go hand in hand. I mean, responsibility and accountability should go hand in hand. Now, what happened in the present case? There was one person in Chhattisgarh. When he was arrested, there were no injuries on his body. And after that person was arrested, something happened in the lockup and he's dead. Post-mortem report showed there were many injuries. So originally, if this was supposed to be taken up as per law, this is as per the section 302 of old IPC and the new laws, criminal laws. It's a clear-cut case of murder on police. However, the High Court intervened and said that this is not a murder, deliberate murder, but it's a case of culpable homicide, which is less than a murder in legal terminology. So it happened by mistake, accident. It was not intentional. And here one more layer was added. Court even went to the extent of saying that maybe the police were trying to teach the person a lesson by, reprimanding him physically. So there were many cases like this. Ram Singh Yadav was a state of UP, or many cases are there. Okay, which says that this kind of custodial violence is a very derogatory form of treatment for any citizen, no matter how much grievous crime is committed by that person. So we also have UN conventions which deal with this aspect of torture. We have discussed this previously, so it's nothing new. Another case study. But this is not just supposed to be viewed from a political angle alone. There is a sociological angle to this as well. Many studies show that the subjects of this kind of violence are usually from the backward communities, backward castes. What does this tell us? There is a stigma, or a kind of hatred towards, or a condescending attitude towards the lower caste. The rights, we were talking about necropolitics, if you remember, the philosophy of necropolitics, where in some geographies, the rights of people who are subjugated to this kind of discrimination and marginalization, they are treated as if they are second grade citizens and their rights don't matter. So there is one, a legal angle to this, two, a sociological angle, and three, an ethical angle. Because at the heart of this issue is the issue of dignity of human beings. When you talk about the dignity of human beings, there are two perspectives. Dignity by virtue of being a human being, and by virtue of the cultural discrimination in that society. In both these parameters, it is important to respect the dignity of that individual and ensure that justice entails a due process of law. It happens as per the due process of law. In all these cases, the worst part is that court speaking and justifying that maybe the police wanted to teach a lesson. It sets a very wrong precedent. It portrays police as vigilantes. It might be true if that person is a very crooked person, he might be a criminal, all that is fine. Doesn't matter. Irrespective of the character of the victim, we cannot justify vigilante justice in this country as a norm. Because what if that person is innocent? Who are these people to decide the character of that individual or to typecast? If an innocent person is getting victimized, that is a problem of the institution. If a criminal is getting, the criminalization in the society is getting normalized and criminals are getting away, again it's a problem of the society. In either ways, the bottom line is our governance institutions are broken. Instead of fixing the governance institutions, we are normalizing the tendency here, and this kind of vigilante justice and the normalization behind it is uncalled for. This is the takeaway from that article. Clear? Yeah. Why Sri Lankan Tamils are flagging militarization? Same tendency, different geography. Same story. Because human nature is universal most of the times. It's all about power control. What is happening here? Because of, okay, I'll tell the context first. Till 2009, there was a civil war in Sri Lanka. An extremist organization called LTTE, okay, which fought for a separate pocket or a separate nation within Sri Lanka for Tamils. That organization has troubled Sri Lanka, and it has impacted the India-Sri Lanka relations for almost 3 decades, 2-3 decades. Why? Because Tamilians in Sri Lanka were treated as second-grade citizens. There is no respect, and whether they like it or not, even before the colonial rulers left Sri Lanka, or back then Ceylon, they were brought to that country from India. So they became an integral part of that society, and they have nowhere else to go. Okay, they might not have their roots in Sri Lanka, but for generations together they are staying there. They have nowhere else to go, and if you are marginalized, they don't have an option. How will they get out of this situation? So I'm just telling the story of LTT and the context background for this. There was a continuous struggle. Even our ex-Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated in 1991. We have had continuous issue with LTT. It strained India-Sri Lanka relations for a very long time. And finally, in 2009, when LTT as an organization was dismantled and the leader of that organization was killed, Prabhakaran. After that, there was a discussion on the so-called 13th Amendment of the India-Sri Lanka, in the Sri Lanka Constitution, which talked about the empowerment of Tamilians in Sri Lanka. and giving them the rights and dignity that they deserve, which has been an ongoing issue. Now, just because a civil war ended doesn't mean the local government or the national government of Sri Lanka will automatically vacate the place and leave. Ever since, military presence has increased manifold in that region. Alright. So, budgets were increasing for military, presence was increasing, and what is worse, the military and the associated their kin and kith are establishing businesses in that region, competing with the locals. On one hand, you promised after the end of civil war that you will, eventually phase out the military presence and give them the rights they deserve. On the other hand, you are increasing military budgets and also competing and making their life difficult. This is the context of this news article. Okay? Now, what happened? Just like in Chhattisgarh and last year and even during COVID in Tamil Nadu, there is a custodial death of a Tamilian guy. So, in this context, the locals were performing a hartal or a dissent, expression of dissent in a very peaceful way. Okay? So, you can use this incident and relate it to ethics, relate it to history, and draw parallels as to how Mahatma Gandhi during civil disobedience movement, Mahatma Gandhi during South African stint, how he fought for the locals there, and how he advocated for the rights of the locals. So you can use that incident in this manner, and the larger context is the awareness of this event and how it can strain India-Sri Lanka relations. Because any small disturbance that happens in Sri Lanka, in that region, will have repercussions in Tamil Nadu politics also. And if something happens, especially in the context of all this illegal migration debates, we don't want to open another front of non-state actor presence through Sri Lanka. So it's an internal security issue as well. Clear? So that is the takeaway from this article. We have already discussed this with respect to organ donations. There is a discrimination towards women. Women are donors, but they're not they're not receiving the organs. And the primary methodology to decide who should get the organs is the urgency and the health concern alone. This is what the organization said. Nothing new, we have already discussed. So